The wind howled, slamming against the rotting wooden shutters, making the old house tremble. In the flickering yellow light, Emily clutched the fragile letter in her trembling hands, the paper still carrying a faint scent of lavender and dust. She whispered as if speaking to her grandmother's ghost. "They think I've lost everything. But you knew, didn't you? You always knew this day would come." Before we plunge into the heart of today's drama, let me remind you, subscribe to Her Betrayal Stories and ring the notification bell. Here, you'll always find stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and breathtaking twists of fate. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment below. Your own experience might be the spark for the next story we tell. The air inside Mr. Whitman's office was heavy with tension. Only 2 weeks after Eleanor's funeral, the family gathered to hear her final will. Emily sat quietly, her fingers clenched around the chair. Beside her, Lauren leaned back with a smug smile, legs crossed in perfect confidence. Behind them, Daniel's gaze flickered. Not toward his wife, but toward her sister. The lawyer unfolded the will. His voice cut through the silence. "To my granddaughter Lauren, I leave the condominium on Fifth Avenue, and $340,000. Lauren's lips curved into a victorious grin. She turned to Emily, her eyes gleaming. "And to my granddaughter Emily," Mr. Whitman continued, "I leave the house in Millbrook and its contents." The words hit like ice water. That rotting, forgotten house in the countryside. No money, no security, just collapsing walls. Lauren chuckled cruelly. "How fitting. You've always been comfortable with scraps. That house is practically a landfill. Maybe now, Emily, you'll finally feel at home." Daniel didn't defend his wife. He didn't even look at her. Instead, he muttered coldly, "At least Lauren knows how to recognize real value." In that moment, Emily's stomach twisted. Betrayal burned hotter than grief. She realized she wasn't just losing her sister. She was losing her husband, too. The days that followed were worse than the funeral itself. Lauren paraded her new wealth, inviting friends to champagne brunches and flaunting the luxury apartment Eleanor had left her. She made a spectacle of posting on social media, carefully crafting captions that painted her as the deserving granddaughter. Emily avoided those posts, but Daniel didn't. One evening, while Emily was folding laundry, she noticed him scrolling through Lauren's photos with an almost wistful look. "You spend more time staring at her than you do at me," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel smirked. "Maybe because she actually knows how to live. You've always been so small, so safe. Look at her. She takes risks. She wins. You? You just exist." His words were daggers. Emily lowered her head, biting back tears. If you've ever been told you're not enough, you know the ache that lingers long after the words are spoken. If you've heard that from someone who once swore to love you, then you know. It feels like your soul has been split in two. Viewers, if you've ever been called useless or invisible in your own family, you're not alone. Emily's story is yours, too. 2 weeks later, Emily drove alone toward Millbrook, the envelope still unopened on the passenger seat. The road was long, flanked by dying trees and endless stretches of dirt. There was no cell service, no comforting hum of traffic, just silence. She gripped the steering wheel tighter each mile, her mind spiraling. What had Eleanor been thinking, leaving her this ruin while Lauren bathed in riches? Had even her grandmother thought she was worthless? The house appeared on the horizon like a ghost. Its roof sagged, the paint peeled, and the front porch seemed to bow under invisible weight. Emily parked, heart pounding. For a long moment she couldn't move. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a curse. Still, Something compelled her forward. She unlocked the front door, its hinges screaming, and stepped inside. Dust floated in the sunlight. The air smelled of cedar and mold. On the wall hung an old portrait of Eleanor in her youth, her gaze piercing, almost alive. Beneath the portrait, a music box rested on the mantel. Emily wound it absent-mindedly, and a faint lullaby drifted out, the same lullaby Eleanor used to sing when Emily was a child. Her knees gave out, and she sat on the floor, tears streaming. "Why, Grandma?" "Why only this?" she whispered. The envelope lay heavy in her lap. With trembling fingers, Emily tore it open. "My dearest Emily," it began. "If you are reading this, it means the vultures have descended. Lauren will be smug, Daniel will stray, and you will feel abandoned. That is what they want. But remember this: what looks worthless to greedy eyes often holds the greatest treasure. The Millbrook house is not a curse. It is the key. Inside it lies what will protect you, empower you, and expose them for who they truly are. Trust yourself, my darling. You were always the strong one. The world just convinced you otherwise." Emily pressed the letter to her chest, sobbing. She had never felt so seen, so understood. For the first time in weeks, hope flickered. Eleanor hadn't forgotten her. She had planned this. But what secret lay hidden in these rotting walls? Emily didn't know yet. But the storm outside roared louder, and somewhere deep within the house, she thought she heard a door creak open on its own. The lullaby faded, but its last note seemed to hang in the room like a thread, pulling Emily toward the portrait. Eleanor's painted eyes did not accuse or pity. They invited. Emily reached up, tracing the crack in the frame. It shifted, just slightly, like a hinge. She pressed along the wood until her fingers found a small notch. Click. The portrait swung open. Behind it, a shallow cavity held a tarnished brass key and a folded index card. On the card, in Eleanor's careful hand, were 2 words: "Listen." Down Emily's breath stuttered. She slipped the key into her pocket and stood still, utterly still, allowing the old house's noises to rise around her. Far off, wind whistled through warped window seams. Closer, under her boots. Something whispered. A faint, rhythmic hum. Not quite mechanical, not quite alive. It was subtle, like a heartbeat beneath floorboards. "Down," she murmured. "Okay." In the kitchen, a warped linoleum square looked newer than the rest. She knelt and tugged. Nothing. She tried again, slower, feeling for edges, for give. A corner peeled, revealing a thin seam of wood. Beneath that, metal. She pried with a butter knife and exposed a recessed ring. A hatch. Her pulse quickened. "Grandma, what did you leave down there?" she asked, though what she really meant was, "Why did you leave it for me?" The hatch door protested as she pulled, then surrendered with a shudder and a sigh. Cold air spilled up from a steep stairwell swallowed in dark. She grabbed a flashlight from a rusted drawer. Eleanor never threw anything away, and descended, the beam cutting a thin ribbon through dust. At the bottom sat a door with an old-fashioned lock. She didn't hesitate. The brass key slid in like muscle memory. The tumbler turned. Inside, the light landed on a desk. File cabinets, a corkboard thick with threads and notes. Not a hoarder's cache. A war room. It was a private office, windowless and hidden, yet meticulously organized. Eleanor's discipline reduced to objects. Boxes labeled with dates and initials, a shelf of leather notebooks, a shortwave radio. On the desk, a simple cassette recorder with a tape still inside. A yellow sticky note. "When you're ready." Emily pressed play. Static crackled, then a voice emerged. Steady, clipped, official. "This is Agent Marshall, recording with Ms. Eleanor M. Kent." Emily's knees trembled. The second voice, the one she loved, answered, calm as a winter pond. For the record, I've been documenting these transactions for 8 years. The tape unspooled their secret. Eleanor had tracked shell companies, fraudulent bills, kickbacks disguised as grants. Names were recorded. Real names, not just initials. A network of exploitation that reached beyond the family, beyond their town. The files here weren't a grudge. They were a ledger of wrongs. Then came a name that turned the flashlight to lead in Emily's hand. Lauren Whitfield, her sister, on tape. Agent Marshall asked, "Motivation?" Eleanor answered, almost weary. "Power. Attention. The pleasure of humiliation. She takes what is not hers and smiles while doing it." Lauren believes she's untouchable. Emily's breath fogged the air. She had not been crazy. The years of micro-cuts, Lauren's public jokes about Emily's smallness, the casual dismissal of Emily's ideas at family dinners, that sly nudge Daniel laughed at, had not been harmless. They were a pattern. And here, in Eleanor's sanctuary, the pattern sharpened into a plan. The recording clicked off. Emily stared at the desk, palms slick. One question came uninvited and would not leave. How long had Eleanor known that Daniel would follow Lauren's lead? Had Eleanor seen the way Daniel's eyes lighted around grand gestures and dimmed around consistent love? Had she known that a man who equated value with applause would lean toward Lauren's bright stage? If you've ever wondered whether someone's neglect is about your lack or their emptiness, ask yourself, who needs the audience more? On the corkboard hung a blueprint of the Millbrook house with marks in red pencil. Hidden safe here, hollow wall there, backup main switch, service tunnel. Above it, a line written in Eleanor's slanted cursive. Respect isn't given by blood. It's earned through love and kindness. Emily ran a finger under the sentence, the paper grain rough with age. She felt equal parts grief and clarity. She'd spent years believing that loyalty alone could keep a marriage healthy. She had mistaken endurance for safety. She had thought if she just stayed quiet during the storms, they'd pass. That strategy had kept her afloat. It had not carried her home. Her phone buzzed. To her surprise, a single bar of reception had bloomed underground. A text from Daniel flashed. "Where are you?" She hesitated, then replied, "Millbrook." The house. A moment later. "Lauren and I are coming up this weekend to take stock of what's left. Better not let it rot." The gall. The entitlement. Emily smiled. A small, surprised thing. He had no idea what stock now meant. Have you ever had a moment when the person who belittled you told you exactly where to aim? Sometimes cruelty does you the courtesy of drawing its own outline. She hit stop on the recorder, then scanned the desk drawers. Inside, she found a slim black notebook. First page, a list of contacts, local reporters, an assistant district attorney, a paralegal at a firm Eleanor trusted. Next page, sister, financial manipulation, followed by account numbers, timestamps, a sequence of transfers that moved money in neat loops. Daniel's name appeared beside 2 deposits that corresponded with a consulting invoice he'd bragged about last summer. The invoice was fake. Emily inhaled slowly, then let the breath go, steady and decisive. The house hadn't given her revenge, it had handed her truth. From truth, you could build a plan that didn't require screaming or breaking. It required patience, precision, law. She spent the afternoon cataloging. She didn't photograph anything yet. She wrote descriptions, cross-referenced dates, and circled discrepancies. She practiced saying words that felt foreign in her mouth, but right in her bones. Subpoena, affidavit, forensic audit. She imagined Eleanor sitting across from her, nodding approval. By evening, the wind had eased. She found a tin of tea that still smelled of bergamot, heated water on the stubborn stove, and carried her mug back underground. On impulse, she wound the second tape in the recorder. Eleanor's lullaby voice returned, gentler this time. Emily, if you've reached this tape, you've already found enough to be dangerous. Let danger belong to the truth, not to your heart. Begin with documentation, not accusations. Let them accuse themselves by their own records. Emily's eyes stung. I will, Grandma, she whispered. I'm done letting people tell me who I am. She climbed back to the living room and stood before the portrait. The house felt different now, less haunted, more awake. Her phone buzzed again, a flurry of messages from Lauren. Bring all personal items to the curb. I'll send a donation truck. By the way, change the locks. I don't want squatters. Also, Daniel and I will use the guest room. You can figure out the couch. Emily typed and deleted twice. Then she wrote, the guest room is unavailable. She added a period and nothing else. She didn't justify. She didn't apologize. She did not explain the boundary. She said it. A minute later, Lauren called. Emily let it ring out. A text followed. You're playing games. You can't afford to. Emily lifted the phone to her ear and recorded a single voice memo, the steadiness of her voice surprising even her. Lauren, all access to the house will require my written permission from now on. If you arrive without it, you'll be trespassing. She hit send and watched the typing bubble blink, vanish, blink again. Finally, you're useless now, Emily. Don't pretend otherwise. If you've heard those words, you know the heat that rises behind your eyes, the urge to swing wildly, to prove worth by shouting. Instead, Emily closed her phone and looked at Eleanor's cursive on the wall. Love and kindness. Kindness for whom? For herself, first. The next morning, Emily drove into town. She made copies of the notebooks and cataloged 3 boxes at a print and ship store with a bored clerk who kept glancing at the clock. She mailed 1 set to a friend she trusted across the state. No explanations, just a note. Hold for me. She mailed a second to a P.O. box Eleanor had listed under backup, the third she carried back to Millbrook. As she parked, a luxury SUV rumbled up the dirt road. Lauren stepped out in, boots too clean for country, Daniel trailing behind with a strained smile that used to be reserved for Emily. Lauren didn't say hello. She surveyed the porch like a general sizing up enemy terrain. Move aside, she said, pushing past. I want to see what I inherited. You didn't, Emily said. Eleanor left the house to me. Lauren's laugh was bright and cruel. Don't be cute. You can have the termites. I'll handle the valuables. Daniel hovered, avoiding Emily's eyes. Let's just check the guest room, he offered weakly. Emily stood in the doorway, blocking them. The guest room is unavailable. Lauren's smile twitched. You're trembling, Em. Step aside. Emily surprised herself. She wasn't trembling. Not anymore. No. Lauren leaned in close enough that Emily could smell her perfume. Sweet, expensive, a cloying mask. You think a broken little house mouse can stop me? She whispered. Emily lifted her phone, pressed the side button so the camera blinked to life, and answered softly, I think the law can. For the first time, Lauren's gaze flickered. Daniel's mouth opened, closed. The air in the doorway thickened with a standoff the length of a breath. Let's try this again, Emily said, voice low and clear. You may visit by appointment. You may not remove anything. And if you step inside without my consent, I call the sheriff. Viewers, if you were in Emily's place, would you have stepped back or forward? Lauren tapped Daniel's arm, signaling retreat for now, the way a cat backs away from a door it intends to claw later. Fine, she said, already planning. We'll be back. They left in a swirl of dust. Emily watched the SUV disappear, then turned to the house. Her house, feeling its quiet approval. That night, she sat at Eleanor's hidden desk and drafted a list titled Phase 1. She did not include the words revenge or win. She wrote, document, consult, secure, wait. Then, beneath it, a final line. Let them reveal themselves. Emily woke to the sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand. The sky outside was still bruised with dawn, pale light filtering through torn curtains. She rubbed her eyes and saw the notification. An email from Mr. Whitman. Emily, please be aware, Lauren's counsel has contacted me, claiming joint rights to the Millbrook property. I will require documentation of Eleanor's will and any supporting evidence you might possess. Do not be alarmed. Inheritance disputes are common, but remain cautious. Mr. Whitman. Emily sat upright, heart pounding. She clutched Eleanor's letter against her chest, its words echoing. They will try to make you feel abandoned. Remember, what they mock is what they fear. Later that week, she returned to town to meet with Mr. Whitman in his oak-paneled office. Papers littered his desk, and his tired eyes seemed to weigh every word before releasing it. Lauren is aggressive, he said frankly. She insists the Millbrook house has no value and yet demands control over it. That contradiction alone tells me she knows more than she should. Emily remained calm. She doesn't know what's inside. Mr. Whitman raised an eyebrow. And should I? Not yet, Emily replied. But I'll show you when it's time. He studied her, then nodded. Your grandmother always said you had her spine, though you didn't believe it. Be careful, Emily. These disputes can get ugly. When she left the office, she spotted Lauren across the street, leaning against her SUV, speaking animatedly into her phone. Daniel stood beside her, head bowed, nodding like a trained shadow. Lauren caught sight of Emily and smirked, mouthing two words across the distance. You'll lose. Emily didn't flinch. She simply slid Eleanor's key into her pocket, a gesture Lauren couldn't possibly decode. That evening, Emily cooked a simple dinner in the creaky Millbrook kitchen, chicken stew with rosemary, the same dish she used to make when Daniel came home tired and hungry. She remembered the way he used to kiss her forehead and say, "Home smells good because of you." But memory cut sharper now, because he hadn't said those words in years. The stew simmered, fragrant, but her appetite vanished when her phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Lauren can help us both. You're clinging to a pile of rubble. Sign over half, and you won't be left with nothing. Emily set the phone down on the counter, gripping the edge until her knuckles whitened. His betrayal wasn't just in leaving her. It was in assuming she had no ground to stand on, no right to fight. Viewers, tell me honestly, if your partner sent you a message like that, would you still answer with patience? Or would you let silence speak louder? Emily deleted the draft she had begun and wrote only one line back. I will not sign. Stop asking. Days passed. Emily devoted herself to Eleanor's hidden office, cross-referencing files, listening to more tapes. Each revealed another layer of truth. Eleanor had been relentless, documenting not just Lauren's schemes but also Daniel's complicity. One recording chilled Emily. Lauren's laughter echoing faintly as she spoke to Eleanor during a family dinner, unaware a recorder was nearby. She only thinks she has him, Grandma, Lauren purred. Daniel is a pawn. Men follow power, not loyalty, and I know how to look powerful. The tape clicked off. Emily sat frozen, the betrayal doubling in her veins. Lauren hadn't stolen Daniel because she loved him. She had done it to break Emily. That night, Emily dreamed of Eleanor's lullaby again, but this time the tune morphed into words. Let them think you're weak. Let them stand tall on sand. She awoke with clarity. The first phase was nearly complete. She had documented. She had secured. Now, she would wait. The weekend came, and with it, an unexpected invitation. Lauren texted, Family dinner at the Whitfield estate. Be there, we need to talk business. Bring the deed. Emily almost declined, but something in Eleanor's files urged her forward. Facing them on their battlefield might reveal what shadows could not. The Whitfield estate glittered with chandeliers, champagne glasses, and guests dressed in silk. Emily arrived in a simple navy dress, understated but steady. She walked into a room buzzing with laughter, all of it orchestrated by Lauren. Lauren greeted her with exaggerated warmth, kissing her cheek. "Darling sister, so glad you could make it." Her voice dripped honey, but her eyes sharpened like knives. Daniel appeared, glass in hand, his smile practiced. "You look well, Em." Emily smiled faintly. "Better than I did before." The dinner unfolded in layers of false civility. Between bites of roasted duck, Lauren pressed the subject of Millbrook. "Honestly, Emily, you're wasting away in that shack. Let me take it off your hands. I'll even let you keep the furniture, though I doubt it's worth much." Laughter rippled around the table, friends and sycophants echoing her cruelty. Emily sat still, her spoon resting gently in her bowl. "It's funny," she said softly, "how value looks different depending on whose eyes you borrow." The table quieted for a moment. Lauren narrowed her eyes. "Careful, Em. You sound almost confident." Emily didn't flinch. "Confidence isn't a sound, it's proof." That night, Daniel lingered by Emily's car before she left. The air between them was brittle. "You don't have to fight her," he murmured. "She'll crush you. She always wins." Emily studied his face, the man she once loved, now dulled by fear and greed. Maybe she's never faced someone willing to lose everything except the truth. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Don't make me choose." "You already did," Emily said, unlocking her car. She slid inside and drove into the night, her headlights cutting a narrow path. In her lap, a recorder blinked red. Every word from that dinner had been captured. Viewers, imagine holding proof of betrayal in your hand. Would you release it to the world immediately, or wait for the perfect strike? Emily knew her answer. She would wait. Back at Millbrook, she locked the recorder in Eleanor's desk and poured herself a glass of water. She whispered into the quiet, "Phase 2 begins." The house creaked in reply, as if Eleanor herself approved. The days that followed felt like living inside a storm cloud, charged, heavy, expectant. Emily knew Lauren wouldn't rest until she held the Millbrook house in her hands, and Daniel, weak and pliable, would always orbit his brightest star. But Emily had something Lauren didn't. She had the truth and patience. One morning, heavy footsteps pounded the porch. Emily opened the door to find Sheriff Dugan, broad-shouldered and wary, his hat tipped back. "Ms. Kent?" he asked. "Yes." He held out an envelope. "You've been served. Your sister's filed for partition of the property. Claims you're withholding documents." Emily's stomach knotted, but she steadied her breath. She thanked him, took the papers, and waited until he left before tearing them open. Legal jargon spilled across the page, the kind designed to intimidate. But Eleanor's training echoed in her ears. "Don't panic at noise. Paper only has power if you let it." Emily sat at the desk, pulled out Eleanor's notebooks, and matched claim against evidence. With every line she read, the panic loosened. She wasn't cornered. Lauren had just walked into her own trap. That afternoon, Emily made her first call to one of Eleanor's contacts, Claire Jennings, the paralegal listed in the black notebook. Claire's voice was brisk. "I worked with your grandmother." She was sharp. Sharp enough to scare men 3 times her size. "What do you need?" Emily hesitated, then said, "Protection." "And a plan?" Claire chuckled. "Then you've come to the right place. Send me copies. I'll verify what we can. But Emily, once you go down this road, you don't get to turn back." Are you ready for that? Emily looked around the hidden office, at the files, at Eleanor's words on the corkboard. Love and kindness. She whispered. Yes, I'm ready. The following weekend, Lauren and Daniel returned to Millbrook unannounced. The SUV tires spit gravel as they pulled up, headlights slicing the dusk. Lauren didn't bother knocking. She marched up the porch steps and rattled the door handle. Emily! Open up! I know you're in there. Emily stepped into the doorway, calm as stone. You're trespassing. Lauren laughed. Trespassing? On my property? Don't be ridiculous. Daniel hovered behind her, avoiding Emily's gaze. Just let us in. We can talk like family. Family doesn't steal, Emily said simply. Lauren's smile curdled. You think you're clever, hiding behind Grandma's scraps. But I have lawyers. Judges eat out of my hand. Do you honestly believe a little mouse like you can win? Emily lifted her phone, the screen glowing with a live call. You're on speaker. Sheriff Dugan is listening. For the first time, Lauren faltered. Her eyes flickered toward the road, toward escape, but she covered it quickly with another sharp smile. This isn't over, Emily. No, Emily said softly. It's just beginning. Later that night, when the SUV was gone and the house had quieted, Emily's phone buzzed with a new voicemail. Daniel's voice, low and shaky. Emily, I didn't know how deep she was in. I thought she just wanted attention. But it's bigger, isn't it? The money, the fake accounts. If this goes public, I'm ruined too. Please, just tell me what you want me to do. Emily replayed the message 3 times. The man who had humiliated her, betrayed her, now begged for direction. She almost pitied him. Almost. She saved the voicemail into Eleanor's growing archive. Another piece of the puzzle. Another crack in Lauren's empire. The following week, Emily sat in the courthouse gallery as Lauren's attorneys filed their motions with smug precision. Reporters scribbled notes, sensing drama, but when Emily's turn came, she rose, not timid, not meek. With Claire at her side, she presented copies of Eleanor's ledgers, Daniel's fake invoices, and Lauren's own recorded words. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters' pens scratched faster. Lauren's face flushed crimson. This is fabricated, she spat, standing up. But the judge silenced her. Mrs. Whitfield, you will remain seated. For once, Lauren obeyed. Emily sat down, her hands steady on her lap. Inside, her heart beat like a drum, not with fear, but with resolve. Viewers, imagine sitting in that courtroom, your enemy's mask finally cracking, the truth shining for all to see. Would you gloat? Or would you sit in silence, letting justice do the work? Emily chose silence, and in that silence, power shifted. That night, back in the Millbrook house, she poured herself tea and looked at Eleanor's portrait. Phase 3, she whispered. Let them reveal themselves. And oh, they had. The morning of the final hearing dawned gray and heavy, the kind of sky that pressed low on the horizon as if holding its breath. Emily woke early in the Millbrook house, sipping tea from her grandmother's old porcelain cup. The cracks in the glaze caught the light, reminding her that even broken things could hold warmth. She glanced at the files neatly stacked on the desk. Evidence, testimony, recordings. Every piece of truth Eleanor had left her was ready to step into the world. Today, she whispered to the house, to Eleanor, to herself. Today, we end it. The courtroom was fuller than before, with reporters squeezed shoulder to shoulder, cameras flashing outside. Lauren sat at the plaintiff's table, draped in silk and arrogance, though her eyes darted nervously. Daniel sat beside her, pale, his tie askew. Emily entered quietly, her navy dress crisp, her chin lifted. She didn't need armor anymore. Truth was her armor. The judge called the session to order. Lauren's lawyer launched into a tirade about Emily's delusions and fabricated evidence. But when Claire rose, calm and methodical, she presented bank records, notarized ledgers, and the damning audio recordings. The room stilled when Lauren's laughter filled the speakers. Daniel is a pawn. Men follow power, not loyalty. Daniel's face drained of color. He slumped in his chair, the words cutting him publicly as they had once cut Emily privately. Reporters' pens flew like daggers. The judge leaned forward. This is not merely a property dispute. These records suggest fraud, conspiracy, and financial misconduct. I am ordering a full investigation. Lauren's composure shattered. She shot to her feet, pointing at Emily. You planned this. You think you're clever, hiding behind Grandma's dusty papers. But you're nothing. You've always been nothing. Emily didn't rise. She didn't shout. She simply met Lauren's fury with steady eyes and said, "If I'm nothing, why are you so afraid of me?" The gallery erupted in whispers. The judge banged the gavel. Order! But the balance had already shifted. After court adjourned, Daniel followed Emily out into the hallway. His voice cracked. Wait, please. I didn't know she recorded all that. I didn't know she—" Emily turned, her face calm, almost kind. You didn't know because you didn't want to. You looked away every time she sharpened the knife. He reached out, but she stepped back. I don't hate you, Daniel. But I don't belong to you anymore. And you don't belong here. His hand fell to his side, useless. For the first time, Daniel looked small. Weeks later, after legal proceedings stripped Lauren of her claim, Emily stood alone on the Millbrook porch. The house was hers. Not just on paper, but in truth. The sheriff's car had come and gone, taking away boxes of evidence that would haunt Lauren for years. Emily unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old tea. She walked down to Eleanor's hidden office one last time. The files were gone, turned over to the law. The corkboard was bare. But the words remained etched in her memory. Respect isn't given by blood. It's earned through love and kindness. She touched the wall and whispered, I'll keep this place alive, Grandma. Not for revenge, for healing. Emily began restoring the house, room by room. She painted the walls, mended the floors, planted a small garden out back. Neighbors stopped by with pies and tools, curious and kind. For the first time in years, Emily felt community, not judgment. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she invited a few neighbors inside for tea. The living room, once filled with silence and ghosts, now rang with laughter. Children darted down the hall, their footsteps light, fearless. Emily looked around and thought, this is what family feels like. Viewers, if you've followed Emily's journey, ask yourself, what do we inherit from those who came before us? Is it money, property, control? Or is it courage, dignity, and the wisdom to know when silence is stronger than shouting? Emily inherited more than a house. She inherited Eleanor's strength, and with it, she built a life her sister could never touch. Emily stood on the porch at dusk, the lullaby faint in her memory. But this time, it wasn't a warning or a summons. It was a blessing, drifting through the air like a promise. You are stronger than you know. She closed her eyes, breathed deep, and smiled. The past was no longer a chain, it was a foundation, and from it, Emily would rise. My husband left me for my sister. After I inherited a rotten house, until the hidden tapes blew it all up.